Hi, and thanks for tuning in to the CBA Podcast, a place where we chat about our own recent achievements in the area of electronics, software and mechanical engineering, and more likely than not, give excuses for not having done anything at all. Hello and welcome back to another episode. This time it's the 1 year plus a little bit anniversary or celebration of this podcast. And so let's talk a little bit about where it came from and where it's going and what the idea is and why this still exists. To be quite honest, I can't remember what the idea was behind the podcast. I think a friend of mine, talked about having made a jingle for a podcast. And since I listen to podcasts myself quite a bit while I'm in the car mainly, and maybe thought it was nice to contribute a little bit, so why not start a podcast? I think that was the thought behind it. And there is a friend of mine, Piotr, who was also interested in doing that, in podcasting. His idea was more to do it like a video, YouTube series or something like that, but it seemed like too much work for me, so we settled on doing a podcast. And by that time, he and me were both into electronics and software engineering a little bit for the hobby. And he was getting into welding, metal welding, so that looked quite nice. I saw pictures of that, so why not do a podcast and talk about our failures and accomplishments? It was around end of September 2017. So why not give it a try? We registered a libsyn.com page. That is a service where you can upload your audio content, your audio media. So they give you a little web page you can modify and customize, and then have a link and RSS feed to your podcast content. So it's basically a podcast hosting service. And another friend of mine who owns the CBA.si domain was so friendly as to give me a webpage, the podcast.cba.si page, which links to the Libsyn page where the actual audio content is hosted. So that's virtually free. The Libsyn service costs, I think the cheapest option is $7 or €7 or something like that per month, so that's fine with me. Halfway October 2017, it was the first episode. It was episode 0. It was a short introduction of a few minutes telling you, the listener, what the podcast is all about and what you can expect. It was just me doing that. Then, 1 day later, 17th of October 2017, there was a co-hosted episode 1, me and Piotr. Audio quality was quite crappy, and we were just learning how to do it and how to synchronize audio, and he recorded his side of the talk, I recorded my side. Afterwards I merged it, edited a little bit on Audacity, and then there you go, that was the episode. Sound quality was crap and the content was also crap, I guess, but it was quite fun. To give it a bit more publicity to the podcast, 1 day later, the 18th of October 2017, we registered the podcast on Stitcher, which is a podcast, collection of podcasts, something like that. Start page for podcasts, I don't know what to call it. There's a fancy name for it, which I forgot now. We also tried to register it on iTunes, which was a bit difficult for technical reasons, but succeeded later on anyway. So end of November 2017, Piotr didn't really want to do this anymore. He was a bit bored with it. He would have liked a video series, I think, just showing you what was being made and how to do it and stuff like that, but it seemed like too much work for me, so he decided to quit it, and episode 7 was the first solo episode, and from then on it was pretty much solo effort. Halfway December 2017, the iTunes registration finally worked, and also the choice had to be made whether this podcast contains explicit contents or not. Now, I checked explicit, so you may expect this podcast to contain profanity, although that's just my way of talking. I don't really add profanity for shock value or something like that. So occasionally I say shit and fuck also in real life, so shouldn't be a big deal. But if there are sensitive souls out there who are shocked by occasional profanity, then by all means look at the explicit label and feel free to skip this podcast. I think hiding in a cocoon where there's no profanity is not the way to go. I think full exposure to everything is the way to go, but whatever, if you like that, then by all means skip the podcast. And you wouldn't be listening to this in the first place, so there. By January 2018, there were finally show notes containing links and stuff like that, what I talked about. And so it started to look a little bit more like a web page that you see for some podcasts. It's nice to hear something and then later on be able to click on links and actually read more about it, maybe. I guess. And around episode 23, that was end of May 2018, I tried to make it a little bit shorter and to the point as a result of feedback from a friend of mine. And also put all the podcast episodes on YouTube. So from now on, every podcast goes onto the Libsyn page. You can fetch it using your cell phone podcast fetcher app. And also look at it on YouTube or listen to it on YouTube. Without any doubt, you know by now that this podcast is not very good in many ways, but there are some things that I try to do. Minimal effort, maximum gain. For example, make the tone of my voice a little bit higher, because I naturally speak in a very low voice, and that's not very interesting to listen to, I guess. Also, I try to speak faster and to the point instead of just going on and on and on about a boring subject like this one. Also for myself to keep down the editing time, because sometimes editing takes 2 hours, and that's a bit ridiculous for this podcast. Maybe sometimes more, sometimes less, but around 2 hours. And like I said at the start, I don't really have a reason for this podcast, except that sometimes I listen to other people talking and get ideas. So maybe what you hear now, although it's not directly related to what you're doing or what you're thinking or what your field of interest is, maybe you get ideas, right? Maybe it makes you want to read about other stuff or investigate other stuff. So I have this quite often. For when I listen to other podcasts, an idea gets stuck in my head, and I get home and then I look it up on Wikipedia or something like that to learn a little bit of, or discover a new field of interest maybe. Now, like I said, this podcast is very low key. It has about 15 to 20 downloads per episode overall. And the top 3 are episode 13. That was 92 downloads, and that was because the Gigatron project linked to this podcast. And Gigatron is quite popular home-built TTL, a VGA color computer. And so I guess quite a few people from their forum or their mailing list or whatever came to this podcast. So thank you for that. Next up was episode 12, that 28 downloads. I think because it had the Flashing Light Prize 2018 in the title, and in which I competed, and I guess people listened for that reason, to find something about the Flashing Light Prize 2018. And after that there was episode 4 with 28 downloads as well. And I think that was because it had Arduino in the title, although very little was said about the Arduino. I got an Arduino from Piotr, and so that was that. The average length of the podcast is 10 to 15 minutes. I try to keep it shorter because sometimes I go on and on about subjects like this one. Exceptions are episode 4, which was 27 minutes and quite boring, I think. That was with Piotr as well. And episode 9 was 7 minutes long. It was very short. So what's gonna happen in the future? I think I'm gonna continue doing this. It's quite a lot of fun. Maybe make it a bit shorter or more to the point, like someone else already said, is a good idea. And maybe include some more topics outside of my own head. What I mean is talk less about stuff that I did, very niche technical stuff, which is probably not very interesting, maybe, I don't know, but more about experiences and maybe going to some events or talk about events and how that was and people I met or social stuff, maybe, I don't know. But there's still going to be a lot of techie stuff, so because I like that as well. And maybe if I find someone who is interested in doing that, maybe add a co-host or something like that, or occasional co-host, I'll be fine with that. It's going to be a little bit more editing time because you have to merge two recordings basically, but I think co-host was not a bad idea, and it's a little bit more interaction and a bit less boring, I guess, for you. So let me know what you think. I'm always interested in feedback. We got precious little feedback, but you could be the first one writing in, so I'll be waiting for that. So that was all very interesting, I'm sure. The next thing that actually happened in real life was the Retro Challenge 2018 September edition finished, and I did the final commands for that, and everything was published, everything was wrapped up. I'm very happy that it's finished properly with results and winners and honorable mentions. I'm going through the winners very fast now. That's 3 people won out of about 25 contestants. In random order, Cole Johnson, he reverse engineered circuits inside the AY3-8500 Pong chip, which is a chip basically implementing a Pong game. You can configure it using pins and switches, I guess, on a console, so you can build your own console around this chip, and it was used in many Pong consoles around the time. Another winner was Pim van Tent, I think he's a Dutch guy. He wrote about getting Metaforth, I have no idea, it's a Forth implementation, Forth programming language, getting that to run on a HP system in order to generate a Forth system for that same system, I think. That's how it was. I'm a little bit mixed up, but he wrote a quite nice text about it, and it's very readable with a lot of background information, so I suggest you read that. That's nice. And the third winner was Mats Engstrom. He made a Kansas City standard decoder, which is a decoder for standard for storing data on cassette tapes. And he made it out of discrete components and gave the circuit of each subsystem, made it iteratively, so in stages, and it's very interesting to see. There were 3 honorable mentions. One of those was Tom Reitna, I have no idea how to pronounce it, sorry. He made a serial GPS interface for the Apple II for on his boat, so that was interesting. There was Rafael Asena, I have no idea how to pronounce it, sorry again. He investigated a Super Famicom console modem, which was a very strange piece of equipment, and he did a lot of reverse engineering, and it was quite interesting to see him dig himself out of the hole he dug for himself, something like that. Final honorable mention was for Davey Mitchell, who made a adventure game for the Dragon 32 and Coco computers, and it was a quite readable blog, and he describes how he went from idea to final implementation of the adventure game. So it was a text mode adventure game, so that's quite nice read. So congratulations winners and those who got an honorable mention, and also thanks for all the contestants for making this event a reality. It's very nice. I'm looking forward to the next one, which will be in March 2019, I think. Next up is a quick summary of stuff I did. First of all was a Hackalot hack space that's open now in Eindhoven. Finally they have a location. I went there for a cleaning day, the first cleaning day and fixing day, so got a lot of stuff, fixed a lot of stuff, cleaned up, or 10 to 15 people there helping, so that was very nice. I'm not very good at the socializing stuff, so I focused on just getting work done. At the end we all ate together there, and after that I just went back to work because I'm better at working than at socializing, I noticed, but it'll probably get better in the future. I like going there, and I like to go there, but unfortunately the last couple of days I haven't had time for that. So they're open now Thursday evening and Sunday evening, and eventually the plan is to give participants a key so they can open the place 24/7 if they want to. Recently I've looked at Ruby to learn that, and in the meanwhile I'm doing other stuff as well, so we'll see how that turns out. But for one of the things I would like to do with a scripting language is to interface to serial devices that talk serial. So for that I made a small null modem cable, and because most PCs, including my laptop, don't have serial ports, let alone 2 serial ports, I used 2 USB to serial modules wired back to back, and so you have 2 USB ports on the PC talking to each other basically, and that's as true null modem as it gets, I guess. You have software emulation, but I didn't want to use that. So I'll include a picture of that. It's a module I made for myself earlier, and I haven't used it much. It's one of the projects that are made and then end up in a drawer somewhere. But anyway, this works, and maybe I'll use it more in the future. Next mini thing is a breadboard fail. I use breadboards quite a lot when I have to make little test circuits, and I know breadboards are not perfect and they will die eventually and the contacts wear out, and but I chose to ignore that warning and eventually ended up with a breadboard that was, the contacts were oxidized or the wires were oxidized or something like that, but I spent 1 hour searching for a bug that was caused by a bad contact. So how about you just toss the breadboard away after half a year or something like that and then just get a new one. Another funny thing that happened here was I fried a scope probe clip. That was this low inductance clippy thing that you clip on top of the scope probe. I was poking that around a live circuit and there was a 10 amp power supply, and it the clippy thing doesn't really like 10 amps, so it became red hot and crispy, had to toss it away. So I'm a very slow learner. This happened a few times, and I should be a little bit more careful. But then again, these things cost nothing, so let's go. Inspired by, I think, Mark Sherman from the last Retro Challenge and some talk with a friend of mine recently, I tried the last few days to generate a simple VGA image from software. Just a AVR microcontroller and a 14 or something megahertz crystal, and I just basically bed bang the vertical sync and horizontal sync and the color information out of it. I just generated one big green block of color, and that was basically it. So just wanted to see if that was possible and what it would look like. So just to get it out of my system basically. So now forget about it and let's do other stuff again. But VGA is a very simple video signal. It's very clean and quite easy to generate actually. So maybe I do that in the future, and maybe I even do that with an FPGA. And talking about FPGA, I recently had a talk with a friend of mine while driving, and it was about FPGAs. And the next day I found an FPGA, very simple FPGA with a complete open toolchain. That means open as in freely available and source code available. So I don't like the Xilinx or the Altera. I don't like it. I don't like to use it because it's a big binary blob basically you could put in your PC, and for me it's not completely transparent what happens. So I would like to have open source software and just an FPGA with a toolchain from design to uploading it to the device. And also I'd like to have a development board that works with this toolchain. So I found the Lattice Ice stick. It's a USB form factor development board with a ICE40-X1K FPGA on it. It has a serial flash for program storage, and basically the serial flash is bit banked from an FTDI USB to serial chip. So basically what happens is during upload, the flashing software, the programming software talks with using libFTDI to the FTDI device, which bit bang programs the serial flash. It holds the FPGA reset, programs the serial flash, then reset is released, the FPGA boots, programs itself or configures itself from the serial flash, and there you go. So it's quite transparent. This is not the most powerful FPGA, and indeed I'm not a Lattice fanboy, but the reason for choosing this was only because it had an open toolchain. So that's basically the only thing I could find. The ICE40 family comes in a number of footprints. This is a very big TQFP 144 pin device, I think. There are also QFN 20s, basically with the same core with less I/O pins as I understood it. So I might do something with that in the future. It's very nice. I guess whenever there's two similar but different things, there are people on either side of the line, in this case Verilog versus VHDL, and I chose Verilog not because I like it more, but because the toolchain that supported the FPGA happened to support Verilog. So I learned a little bit to write Verilog. I made a LED blinky, and after that I made a PWM output that ramped up and down, control the LED. There's a few LEDs on the development board, so that's very easy. Could have used a few buttons, but whatever, this works. The next step, I took a look at a demo program, among other things targeted at this development board that I had, and there was an actual CPU. So CPU made in 150 or something lines of Verilog. Some very simple stack-based CPU, very limited instruction set, limited ALU, but it was tailored to the Forth programming language or Forth-alike programming languages. And indeed, it was accompanying the CPU project was a Forth implementation. You can interact with it using a serial console. The UART was, of course, implemented using the FPGA itself, so that was very nice. Which made me take a look at Forth itself as a programming language. This was also very nice. So there are two new things I did. There was taking a look at FPGAs and Verilog and how that worked, and also Forth programming language. And both of these are very, very interesting, and it makes me very happy actually to read about this stuff. And this is the kind of stuff that is probably small enough that it fits completely inside my head. I like that. And also I notice I'm really into this stuff, because when I'm doing that I forget to eat and I basically forget to sleep, and I get a lot of energy from it. So So I think I'm going to continue with this a little bit more and see how it works in more detail. I'll put links to the toolchain and to the FPGA, to the development board and the Forth implementation and the CPU in the show notes. Also, eventually I would like to implement my own great CPU project in Verilog. Should be a few lines because it's very simple. And also maybe find an open toolchain for CPLD because those are also nice devices to play with. But I haven't really found a complete toolchain yet. There are some things, but I don't think they're very mature or it didn't look hard enough. So we'll see about that. If you have any ideas, please let me know because I'm interested in this stuff. I don't really care what kind of device it is, as long as there's an open toolchain for that, from design to flashing it into some dev board that I can get. So then I'm happy. If I have complete working toolchain from start to end, then that would be nice. Anyway, that was pretty much it. I hope you liked it so far. A few upcoming events are at 24 November. There's a HCC Retro Division meeting in Beeldhoven in the Netherlands. The HCC Computer Club has a Retro Division. I talked about that a few times earlier. They have a few meetings per year, and the 24th is next. I'll do my little talk about the CPU project there, which I still have to finish. There's probably some more events, but I forgot them now. If I remember them, I'll put them in the show notes, so if you want, take a look at that. Sunday, hopefully, I'm going to the Hackalot place again to see what's up and what it looks like now. And tomorrow, it's Friday now, tomorrow Saturday, obviously, I'm going to the Awesome Space in Utrecht to try to fix some stuff. So that was all for now. For more information, links and previous episodes, visit podcast.cba.si. Stay tuned, thanks for listening, and goodbye.